Big sports guy. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. What's going on, everybody? My name's Dawson, and this is Beyond the Playbook. All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of Beyond the Playbook. Today we have a very special guest, Lexi Smith, the Associate Athletic Trainer from the University of New Mexico women's basketball team. Lexi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having
Good.
me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you and get to learn a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today. So, if you don't mind, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
So, you're from Williamsport, Indiana. Tell us a little bit about growing up there and a little bit of your background.
So a lot of people don't even probably know Williamsport, Indiana is a place, but it is super small town. My graduating class, I think, in high school was 94. I did grow up obviously going to Purdue events for like 30-ish, 45 minutes away from Purdue. The only school I applied for, grew up season ticket holders to volleyball, men's, women's basketball, and football. I remember like when I was younger, probably in like fourth grade, I looked at my mom and I was like, what are those people with like the water and running on the field and people get hurt too? And she was like, oh gosh, those are athletic trainers, blah, 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 blah. Kind of gave me a rundown and she was like, that's a hard job. She was like, so you might just want to think about that if you really think you want to do that. But yeah, so I never really changed my mind in that. But yeah, graduated from high school in 2014, went to Purdue, got into the athletic training program at the end of my freshman year, and then graduated in 2018 there. At Purdue, I worked football, women's basketball, and then softball. And then went on to grad school where I worked indoor volleyball and then softball. Grad school, got my master's degree in sports administration. Went on to work at the University of Illinois for a year with women's swim and dive, and then got a phone call from the past director of sports medicine at Purdue and was like, do you still want to work women's basketball? And I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, well, just hear me out. And I was like, okay, Doug, what do you got? And he goes, Albuquerque. I was like, New Mexico? And he was like, yeah. He's like, just give him a call and talk to him. And pretty much the rest is history from there. Here I am 4 years later, almost 5 years, which is crazy to think about. But
That's crazy. When you went to school at Seeger in Williamsport, did you ever like play sports or anything like that growing up?
yeah, I kind of, when I was younger, I kind of did everything, softball, basketball, dance, gymnastics, swam on the swim team one summer. And then when I got into high school, I cheered for a little bit, but then softball was my big thing and just kind of stuck with that. Wish I would have stuck with basketball, but still love it to this day. I love the game, love being around it.
When you were playing, did you ever have like an athletic trainer or anything like that? That I know you talked about seeing them at the Purdue games, but was there ever a certain one while you were playing that was like, oh man, that they kind of inspired you? Or
So when I was in high school, they did not have an athletic trainer assigned to our high school. They would have someone that would like come to games and someone that would like pop in a couple days a week, like in the office. I think they called them like training room checks or injury checks or whatever. But other than that, no, we didn't really have one. I got hurt my freshman year, so I like got hooked up with an orthopedic doctor. And so that's kind of how that's what the route we took. But no, unfortunately, we did not have an athletic trainer like in our school full time. Now they do, which is great. I love that. And I'm pretty for sure Purdue students get sent out to that high school now too, which is cool. I did my high school rotation on McCutcheon, so
oh, gotcha. No, that's really cool. So you got to work with football team, softball, and women's basketball team. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
great experience. I couldn't have asked for any better clinical or academic experience. Used to be back in the day when I was there, your sophomore year or yeah, your sophomore year, like towards the end, you like put in this list of like sports that you'd be interested in having, and basically kind of like why you would have them. And then if you got lucky enough, you got to have those sports. If some of us got lucky, some of us didn't. I was very fortunate. My junior year, so in the fall of my junior year, I had football the whole entire year. So that's you're going to class every day from like 7:30 to noon, and then you're going to practice between 12:30, 1-ish, and then you're not leaving until like 5, 6, 6:30, depending on what day of the week it is, what the practice schedule is like, if we're on the road that day, if we're or that week, and if we're playing at home or not. So then you have to worry about like packing up the semi, packing up everything that we take. Doug always was like, we always pack up the farm and we go. So like you bring your own coolers, like everything you see on the sidelines of football games, like the team puts in the semi and you just load it up and you go and you set it up when you get there. And then my sophomore, or yeah, the second half of my junior year, I had softball in the spring. So softball, you don't really travel with as much. Usually they don't travel at all. I got really lucky my junior year and I got to go to Palm Springs with them. So we were in Palm Springs for 3 or 4 days for the Marionette Classic, which was super fun. And then same thing, like you're going to class all day and then you're going to practice. But before class, you might have to cover a 6 a.m. lift or a 6 a.m. conditioning, whatever it is that day. So like you could be going from 5:30 to 7 and then going to class at 7:30 and then you're going to practice and then you have post-practice treatments and then like trying to figure out, a social life of college. And then you're still like, okay, well, I have homework to do and I have to study and the traveling and of life and all of that. And then your senior year, we got one sport all year round. So I was lucky enough to pick with women's basketball, which is, I got really lucky. I got all the sports I wanted when I wanted them. My biggest thing for women's basketball was, I love basketball, but I wanted to work with their athletic trainer, Jess. She was such a great mentor and we're basically friends now. I just talked to her on the phone like a few days ago, but she's dual credentialed. She's an AT, but she's also a PT. So it was like really cool to just learn basically how she runs an athletic training room, how her stuff differs from everyone else who's just an athletic trainer, and like the way that she does things. And that was, I mean, I feel like some days I was there as much as she was, besides me being in class. But like, again, like you have 6 a.m. conditioning or lift that you're covering, and then you're in class and we practice like at 3 o'clock. So you're getting done practice at 5:30, but then you have post-practice treatment. So you're probably not getting out there till 6 or 6:30, depending on what you all got to do that day. And the travel schedule with basketball is pretty brutal. I think we were gone, like we played, I think we were on for almost like 2 weeks. Like it was nuts. We had played on a Saturday, flew out that night to go to Utah, played at Utah on a Monday, left on Tuesday to go to Hawaii. We were in Hawaii for 5 days. We get back on a Monday, we leave on Tuesday to go to I think it's like Georgia Tech or something. Like it's a lot. It's a lot, but I loved it and I'm so happy that I'm back in basketball as a full time now.
So while you were doing your time at Purdue, I know you said you liked basketball. Did you prefer basketball over the other ones, or was there one that you did prefer over or enjoyed more, I should say?
Um, I love basketball because the team is smaller, so you kind of get to build more of a relationship with the kids and get to know them better. And sometimes the staff too. I mean, we're literally together all of the time. Softball kind of the same way. It's a little bit of a bigger roster, but still able to, form those relationships. Football, I remember I was like, I'm never gonna remember all these guys' names or who they are. You do. You get to know every 120 that's on your roster or whatever it is. But I think I just like the small team feel and the more like close-knit like community that you have with basketball. But I still loved my time with softball and football as well. I just think you also sometimes have a little bit better perks with basketball. The travel is a little bit better. A lot of times if you're in basketball or football even, you're gonna get paid a little bit more just because they're usually money-making sports. And then you also, like I said, you have like the close knit of stuff. The travel with basketball can be a little bit more fun. You're going on foreign tours every 4 years, depending on where you're at. Not all schools can afford them. Or you're going out of the country. Last year we went to Cancun for a tournament. So yeah, I just think there's a little bit more perks but I like the closeness of getting to know the athletes more one-on-one for sure.
I definitely see that side of it. It's a smaller team. You get to make those connections like you were talking about. But I mean, it's cool that you got to do, that's a pretty big commitment from yourself,
Yeah.
definitely during your undergrad. You're doing a spring, you're doing a winter and a fall sport. I mean, those can be crazy, and I know how crazy football can get. I mean, there's contact every single play,
Yeah.
so you guys are probably looking at somebody, all the time. Same with basketball. I mean, basketball. I mean, each one probably has their own certain things that you see a lot, and you can probably see a whole bunch of different variety in
Oh, for
each of the
sure.
three sports. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you were telling me when we were talking about this that you had the opportunity to study abroad in China for 3 weeks. Did that involve athletic training or sports, or was it just completely different from that?
Yeah, so the sports or the athletic training program has relationships with people in Beijing, China, and then they have relationships with people in Ireland too. So there's two study abroad programs that you could do. The Ireland one's a whole semester long. So it's the second semester of your junior year. And then the China one, they would go every other year, the sports medicine people would. Then the other year, like the exercise physiology professors would lead it. So we always went, obviously, when the athletic training person would lead it. I don't think they go to China anymore. But yeah, we went to Beijing Sport University for about 10 days, I think, if I remember. Stayed in their dorms there. Super different lifestyle. I mean, I got there and I was kind of like, okay, I think I kind of want to go home. I don't know about this. But we took classes like we learned about cupping, like, and then that summer it was like huge in the Olympics. Like it was, and then we learned about some different other things that, traditional Chinese medicine people use that we kind of were like, oh, this would be kind of cool if we could like integrate it into our practice. Some of the, like I said, the cupping translated. Then we learned like about acupuncture. We do a lot of dry needling now. That's really big now. So it's like kind of cool to see how the different medicines just kind of matched up with each other and like what they would do or call things compared to like what we do. The cool thing there was everyone at that university majors in a sport. So it was like people are majoring in badminton, basketball, softball, swim and dive, like artistic gymnastics, regular gymnastics. Like it was like super, super cool to like see that. And so then there's an Olympic training center on that campus, which is like, I'm pretty for sure it was track and some like other smaller sports, like artistic gymnastics. I think badminton was there. And then we also went to like their main one that had basketball, it had gymnastics, all the big sports that you would expect. So it was like really cool to go.
I actually never kind of looked into studying abroad during my undergrad. So, I like hearing everybody's background that gets the opportunity to do something like that. I know it can be, you get to learn about different cultures and the way they kind of do things and be able to compare that and maybe you took something from China that you used in every day of your position that you do now. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone was like, you have to go to China. So I was like, all right, I'll go. Never thought I'd go to China, but I did. It was cool. It was really cool. And we did stuff there too. Like we went to the Great Wall, we went to the Forbidden City, stuff like that. We were in Beijing and then we were in Hangzhou for a few days and then Shanghai, which is like the New York of China, I guess is kind of what they said, if I remember right. So it was cool. It was really cool.
You transition from going to Purdue to going to Morehead State. That's a little bit of a smaller school. Tell us about kind of the process of how you got to Morehead State. Did you apply to several different graduate assistant opportunities, or was that kind of your only one you applied to and you were like, oh, I'm going to Morehead?
Crazy enough, GA positions aren't even a thing anymore because they kind of changed the athletic training degree. But to work in college athletics, you have to have a master's degree. And they really want those 2 years of experience. I think a lot of people think, oh, you were a GA, so you like weren't the athletic trainer. No, I was the athletic trainer for those teams. There was no one above me. I made all the decisions. So when I was applying to stuff like that, I said I wanted a sports management or administration master's degree. And I wanted to be online, knowing like I'm going to be doing all this traveling. I don't want to have to worry about going to class and traveling and then doing, okay, treatments and rehab can be in this teeny tiny window or X, Y, and Z. But I wanted Division 1 as well. I just wanted a different feel. Okay, at Purdue, we have a budget that we have all the things that you could ever want. We have a $50,000 laser. We have a Ultra G, which is a zero gravity treadmill. Like we have all the things that you could ever want or need in an athletic training room. And I wanted to go somewhere else that would kind of challenge me to have to like think outside the box. So I went to Morehead State where I had a STEM unit machine. So I had literally STEM and ultrasound, heat packs, a game ready, which is like cold compression. And that was literally it pretty much. Cupping. So I think it was good because I got to see both sides of like, this is how you can operate at a big school. This is how you can also operate at a small school. So it really challenged me to think outside the box, use my hands, get really good at like different skills. Also obviously getting my master's degree, but it was a big jump for sure and things and trying to figure out, oh, we don't have all the money here. So like, how do you like use a smaller budget and make things work that you like need? Like a lot of people takes up a majority of a lot of people's budget, which it was there. It is here too. It takes up about half of our budget, which is crazy. But yeah, it was cool to see how different schools operate at different levels, but also it was a good challenge for me and a growth for professionally and individually too.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the sports that you got to do there. Was it kind of the same operation of you being able to, apply to certain sports, or did you just get kind of assigned to those?
So when you apply to GA positions, you can also look at sports. I was someone that like didn't want to be with certain sports because I was just like, yeah, maybe not my jam. So I applied for to a few positions. This one had volleyball and softball, and then there was another one that was just soccer. One of my classmates actually got the soccer position, and I got the volleyball softball position, so that was really cool. But they kind of just look at what sports you've worked a lot of times, and they're like, oh, you'd be a good fit with this one. Otherwise, it's a GA position, so it's just like, oh, well, you need experience. So some people don't care, like they don't care what sports. I had friends at high schools that were GAs at high schools. I had friends that were GAs with a football team at a Power 5 school. So it just kind of depends like what they think that you're a good fit for. But yeah, I applied to a few different ones, and then again, the director of sports medicine at Purdue at the time, Doug, called me in his office and he was like, yeah, Moorhead's gonna call you. And I was like, okay. He's like, okay.
No,
So
that's cool. I mean, that's really cool, and especially, trying to benefit from your career. And I think for people listening that are wanting to go in towards this career path of, you go from having everything at Purdue to having a smaller budget at a smaller school. And like you said, you're having to think outside the box with different things. And I think it's cool that you recognize that of something that can benefit you in the future for your career. And obviously, helping you land at the University of Illinois. Tell us a little bit about that transition going from Morehead State to going back to the Big Ten, but you were with the swim and dive team this time. So
I
I
was.
want to kind of hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, another big transition sport that I'd never worked. Purdue, I think, hosted Big Tens one year. So like I remember like helping out with that, but really you're just kind of replacing out waters and stuff. So you're not like doing really anything hands-on. I graduated with my master's in 2020, so in COVID. I went on a softball road trip. We were in Arkansas and then we got back Sunday night and it was, hey, we're gonna be take a break for 2 weeks. And I was just like, huh, what? I'm like, what do you mean we're gonna take a break for 2 weeks? And they're like, yeah, everything's being shut down. I remember being on the treadmill and it was like the Big Ten tournament's canceled. I'm like, it's halftime. You can't cancel like the Big Ten tournament. Are you crazy? And so yeah, they were like, well, if you go on for 2 weeks, then we'll reevaluate. And then we never went back. So trying to find a job in the middle of COVID was horrific. You would apply to things, never hear back because people were in hiring freezes. And then school got like August crept closer, and then things started opening up a little bit more. And so I applied to this, it was technically an intern position at Illinois. Their swim and dive athletic trainer had moved over to women's soccer. And Illinois, we were like in our own bubble at Illinois. That is like how locked down we were. We were
Dang.
testing 2 to 3 times a week. Like the regular students were testing, faculty, like it wasn't just athletics. So we were like in a bubble. The director of sports medicine at Purdue, Doug, I mean, literally, I owe my life to this guy. Like I could not be more grateful and thankful and blessed to like have had him in my life because he really set me up like everywhere I've been. I texted him and I was like, hey, Illinois has an intern job up. And he was like, well, yeah, I just talked to Randy about this. Like, I'm gonna call him back. You'd be perfect for this. And I was like, yeah, but it's an internship. And he was like, yeah, but you're basically gonna like you're gonna be the athletic trainer, but it was easier for them to do this than hire someone full time because of COVID and they didn't have to jump through all of the HR hoops as much. And I was like, okay. And he was like, any other year, I'd be like, no, you don't need an intern position. Like, you went to undergrad at Purdue and you have Division I experience. Like, as a GA, for your like, no, you're not doing that. He was like, but because of the times that it is, he was like, you should take this and like, I'll call him and we'll see where it goes. And I was like, all right. So he calls him, then he calls me back. Then Illinois calls me and they're like, you only live like 45 minutes to an hour away. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you just want to like come on campus? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I did like a quick Zoom interview and then I went on campus. And then like the next day, again, it was history in the books. I was like, yeah, to be back in the Big Ten, close to home. I was like kind of a no-brainer. And I'm so thankful for my time there. I grew a lot. I met a lot of great people. The kids were great. My head coach was great that I got to work with. It was good to be back in the Big Ten. A little bit of like, okay, how do I use this laser again? A Hibamat? Yeah, I don't even know if I've ever used one of those. Like all the big things. And I was like, okay, I need to put someone in the altar G. Can someone help me? Like, so I also had to get comfortable with like okay, I forget how to use these things. Can someone please help me to ask for help or assistance, whatever it is. But it was good. I loved it and it was a really good experience. It was a lot during COVID. Our policies were nuts. I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we did that. But we did. Swimming's a little bit of a different sport. You have 2 a days every day. So we had swim practice at 6 or 6:30 in the morning every day, and then again at like 2 p.m. So there was one day a week that we didn't have a double. And so it's a lot, but like I said, it was a good experience. It was fun. It was get to know another sport and stuff like that. So
Right. Just kind of watching you tell your story about that, you've done several different sports, which obviously when you go to applied places, people are going to look at that. And for the listeners that are listening, I mean, watching the transitions and the sacrifices that you have to make, not only as an athletic trainer, but in sports in general, like there's a lot of things like you put in long hours, like you have to do a bunch of different things and just seeing that and noticing like that you just got to be kind of willing, and that's what I kind of tell everybody that is wanting to get into sports, is that you have to be willing to just kind of take it, and unpaid or paid, or going back to an internship after you just got your master's just because of COVID. I mean, COVID was the unknown, so that's really cool of watching you transition from that.
yeah,
So I
for
want
sure.
to hear though, you did all these sports at Morehead State and Purdue. You go to swimming and diving. What are kind of the differences that you saw from, being on a field on the sidelines, a football field or a softball field, and then you go from swimming and diving? Tell us a little bit about of the differences that you got to see though.
Typical, football is kind of a sport that it's like you have injuries from the head to the toe. Like it's a full body sport, right? So you're seeing everything from ACLs, concussions, ankle sprains, shoulder labral tears, literally anything. And you see all the illnesses too. So a lot of people are like, wait, a kid's calling you because they're sick. I'm like, yeah, that's like my job. Like that's my job. Like I have to do all of this. And then same thing with basketball, kind of a sport head to toe. We've seen shoulders, we've seen knee injuries, ankles, illnesses. And then you throw in mental health. I learned a lot about mental health. I had a really big mental health case my senior year of undergrad that I'm so thankful for because I've had to deal with it so much in my career. And then softball, swimming, more of upper body sports. So it's like a lot of shoulder stuff. You had a lot of back stuff too with swim and dive. And then I had a girl dislocate her kneecap swinging a golf club one weekend.
Oh my
So that
gosh.
was a random one. Yeah. But for the most part, it's a lot of chronic injuries. So it's a lot of figuring out how to manage it, knowing that they're going to be in pain all the time. But how can we like lighten their practice volume or their load or intensity to like kind of help them get through practice and still be able to compete? And then like, yeah, basketball, I said head to toe. I've seen it all. I've don't even know. I've had ankle surgeries, knee surgeries, I've had 2 or 3 shoulder surgeries, kids with broken fingers, like I said, mental health cases. I've had nutrition cases too, where you would dealing with kids with eating disorders and stuff like that. So just I've seen it a lot of it. I haven't seen it all. But I have seen a lot in my time. But yeah, I would say the biggest difference is like volleyball, softball, swim and dive. You're seeing a lot of shoulder stuff, upper body, a lot of upper body sports. And it's just like a lot of more chronic than it is acute. But yeah,
No, I mean that's crazy, and I don't think like a lot of people, like I don't think I realize of everything that goes into that. I mean, I think a lot of people that are listening kind of think of like college athletes and professional athletes are superheroes, and a lot of times they're just people like you and I, and just regular students. I mean, trying to balance school and doing a full. I mean, playing an athletic sport in college is a full time job, and it's just crazy just to try to balance that. And a lot of them are, older teenagers or in their early 20s. I mean, just trying to figure out that and balancing school is just kind of crazy. So I'm sure you're kind of help out with that a lot, and in your career, and obviously seeing you grow from going through your undergrad at Purdue to Morehead State to Illinois to University of New Mexico. I mean, it's kind of probably, I don't want to say it's second nature because I'm sure you see something new every day, but I mean, it's got to be helpful in your career just knowing where you've been and your background with that. So that's really cool to see.
for sure, for sure.
So now we're going to transition into everything that you do at University of New Mexico. So you're the associate athletic trainer for the women's basketball team there. Tell us a little bit about the duties that you're in charge of there, and you kind of tell us that you do some admin duties along with that too.
Yeah, so I always tell people I'm like, what you see like at practice or on the sideline, so you see me sitting or standing at practice or sitting on the sideline of a game or handing out a water bottle, go running on the floor to like go see an injury if someone goes down, like that's like 10% of my job. And the other 90% no one else sees. Like no one else sees me like at work at 6 a.m. because we have a lift at 6:30 or conditioning at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, whatever it is. So you're there for that. And then you might have to go to a staff meeting with your coaching staff. And then you might have a sports medicine staff meeting. You're making injury reports every day, documentation of every single treatment. Obviously injuries too. And then you have surgicals, you're running kids to and from doctor's appointments. Administratively right now on my plate, I just restructured our whole entire physical paperwork. So that was a lot more tedious than I thought. I think I was like, wow, that's really 12 plus hours of my life I'm never going to get back in a span of like 3 or 4 days that I've like been really working on it. We're like texting and communicating with doctors. I'm in charge of all the AEDs in the whole entire athletic department. So I am responsible for giving out people, okay, you're in charge of softball's in charge of softball, baseball's in charge of baseball, football, you're in charge of these locations. Every week they're supposed to do weekly checks and then a monthly check. The weekly checks are like making sure the green light's blinking, and then the monthly is like actually taking the battery out, putting it back in, making sure it runs, and then usually if something's wrong with it, it'll tell you like, oh, you need a new battery, oh, you need new pads. So I order all the supplies for the AEDs, so pads and batteries. If you need a new AED, I'm ordering that. And then also taking all the paperwork and giving it to the university. On that side of things, I've sat on, gosh, so many hiring committees for athletic trainers. I've sat on the hiring committee for strength coaches. I have been dealing with and taking over nutrition for teams before in the past. And then I just kind of like got put on a bigger role for that. And then overseeing hydration, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't see. It's not just taping ankles and handing out water and running onto the floor. Like it is. And then you have the kids that, some of them are like I had a 17-year-old. She didn't turn 18 until October this past year. Like I had kids from all over the world. I have kids from Spain. I had kids from Finland, Africa, a couple of kids from Africa. Like I had kids from everywhere this year too. So trying to figure out a lot of them don't speak that great of English. So there's a language barrier. So I don't know. I always tell everyone I'm like, I don't see them as basketball players. I see them as humans first. They're just like you and me. And so yeah, like people are always like, you have a cool job. I'm like, yeah, I do have a cool job, but it's a lot. My phone rings 24/7, 365. There's never a day that I can just shut my phone off and exist. Like I'll be at home and people will call me and they'll be like, this is what's happening. And I'm like, okay, let me make you an appointment or let me send you some rehab exercises. Literally anything. Like my phone will ring at 2 a.m. because a kid needs picked up from God knows where. And I'm like, okay. Or I need to go to the hospital because this person doesn't feel good, and it's like an emergency situation. So yeah, we miss a lot. I'm too. It's just like I feel bad. I go home and I'm just like, sorry, it's work. But it is hard to unplug. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I can just like, I'm going on vacation for 5 days. I'm shutting my phone off. Don't contact me. If you need someone, contact this person. But yeah, like I said, 10% of what people think or what they see is like, that's 10% of my job.
Wow, I mean, it is hard to shut off in sports. I mean, I care about what I do, and I care about the park where I work every day. And it's like with the women's basketball team that you work with and being in charge of everything with your admin duties. I mean, if something goes wrong, somebody under you may not know how to handle that. And I think it's just kind of that back thought in your head of like, well, oh, what's going to happen if this happens, or so on and so forth. So that's, I do understand where you're coming from, but it's really cool of how much you take pride into what you do. And I'm sure the women's basketball team definitely appreciates that, and everybody on the coaching staff. Other than kind of the coaches that you work with and the team, is there anybody else that I know you talked about calling, or you're in charge of all the AEDs and stuff, but is there anybody else in the athletic department that you work with a lot?
Yeah, we have, so like I said, I just restructured the whole entire physical paperwork. So to do that, I needed like the Adobe pro format and not just like the regular Adobe. So I contacted the IT guy and he was like, let me set you up. So then you have to like get permission from the CFO of the athletic department so they can pay for that and put it on your account. So I work with people like that sometimes on certain situations. Our deputy AD, he just came back. He was originally the CFO. He left to go to Washington and now he's back. He's so happy to have him back. He does a lot with basketball, so I communicated with him a lot before he left. You have to like work with different budgets too. So like the sports medicine budget is from sports medicine, but it doesn't cover the AED stuff. So you have to reach out to the financial operations person and be like, these are the things that we need to order for just to have on hand for when people need batteries or pads. So that has to come out of their budget. And then they give me that information to send to the AED people so they make sure it comes out of the right budget. There are some things that women's basketball pays for that sports medicine doesn't. So like my kids get massages, so that comes out of the women's basketball budget. It doesn't come out of the sports medicine budget. The food comes out of these women's basketball budget, not the sports medicine budget. That is one thing that we don't have like a dining court on campus for our athletes or even on campus. It's kind of weird. First place I've been that we don't. So nutrition is like a big thing that we all really need around here, but which could be great for a dining hall. Yeah, so just like communicating with different people in terms of budgeting. Our Dobos, our director of basketball operations, when I need to like buy things for the team, I go through her, stuff like that.
Hearing your story and people that are listening that want to kind of go this route, and I think this is, kind of hearing where you started and where you went, and then you having to become an intern out of COVID, and then leading you to where you are now. I think that's you have a really awesome story, and it just kind of shows how passionate you are in what you do and everything that you've done. I mean, you've done several different sports, and you got to go to China and everything you do for the University of New Mexico. I'm sure that they really appreciate it. And, you know, following each other on Instagram, just seeing your teammates just kind of shout you out of everything that you've done for them. And it just goes to show that, I mean, at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time with them. So they are like your family, and that's really cool to see. So
For sure.
before we wrap everything up, we do have a one last segment on Beyond the Playbook. So the last guest that I have on, they come up with a guest for our next guest, which is you. So Neelan Hibbett, he's the long snapper for the University of Alabama. His question for you is, what was the hardest part of coming in as an intern for an athletic program, really?
Um, I would just say the unknown of like what you're really getting into. At your smaller schools, like here, we have like a lot of younger people on our staff. At a place like Illinois, at least when I was there was a lot of people that were like very experienced. So that could be kind of intimidating in terms of just like everyone there was buying a house when I was there. And I'm like, yeah, I just still live at home and commute 45 minutes to an hour one way every day. So I think that, and it's a new team, right? You never know how the athletes are going to react to you or your personality. Sport that I had never worked. But it ended up being a really big thing. But I think that was the biggest adjustment too, of just like, okay, I'm not even like in the same like bracket that these people like, I'm a single 20, was like 24, I think, when I got there, 23 or 24, 20, yeah. And so it was just like, oh, okay, this is can be intimidating. Like, am I smart enough to be here? Like, I don't know if I'm gonna live up to like the standard of the expectation, but I think that was like the biggest thing. And also because it was COVID of the unknown and the policies that we had to implement with our teams and like in the pool, it was like you had to be in the same lane as your roommates and how we're like, but they're in chlorine. Like there was just a lot of unknown too. So I think all of that combined was a big adjustment and kind of like, oh gosh, what the heck. But also being at home, I like my friends and family like know like wow, she's like super busy, but people are like, oh, we're gonna go do this tonight. Like, do you want to come over? And I'm like, yeah, I can't. Like I have practice or one of my childhood best friend got married while I was there and we had to change her wedding date because of COVID.
Oh,
And
dang.
I was just like, oh shoot. And someone was like, well, we're still gonna do this on like the night before the wedding. Can you come and just like take PTO? And I'm like, yeah, that's not how athletic training works. Like you just are like, hey, could you maybe like be on call for my practice if you can't be there? And so like you miss a lot. You miss birthdays, you miss holidays. Obviously, now that I'm across the country, I miss a lot too. You know, I miss my nieces and nephews growing up. I do go home for Christmas, and then in May I'm home for a little bit, but that's it. Like it's a grind. And so I think that was hard too for a lot of my like really close family and friends to see like, dang, like she really is busy. Like she's getting phone calls at 10 p.m. because a kid just got a notification that she's positive for COVID. I'm like, yeah, welcome to my life. But I think that was the biggest adjustment too. But besides COVID, was just like, again, I was around people that were not like, some of them were 40, some of them were 35. Like it was just so it was like I said, it was a big like shock of like unknown and not knowing what I was getting myself into, but it ended up being great. And I'm, like I said, so thankful for my time there and the people that I got to meet.
I mean, just hearing your story, and for everybody that's, like I said, listening, I mean, I think you're giving a lot of insight for somebody that wants to go in the athletic training, talking about sacrifices and everything that you had to deal with, and going the intern route. I mean, hopefully COVID, nothing like that happens again, but
I
you
think
never
I'll quit.
know.
I'm not kidding. That was never again, please.
But no, I mean, it's super cool, and I think you've given a good insight for that. So I really appreciate you coming on today, and
Yeah, of course, anytime.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We gon' always win. Promise that that's not